Alrighty, hi everyone. We are going to get started. We do have Stacy Barno from Chester County on as a panelist. Stacy, did you want to do an introduction for the group?
That would be great. Thanks, Danielle. We just wanted to welcome everyone to this parent and caregiver training. Danielle and Easterseals of Southeastern Pennsylvania graciously wish to provide this parent training opportunity. They provided this training in Delaware County for their interagency coordinating council just about 2 weeks ago, I believe, and we heard such great reviews that we wanted to be able to offer it to families and caregivers here in Chester County. So I'll go ahead and turn it back over to Danielle. We would love to hear from families for LICC. If you are interested in having more trainings like this provided in Chester County, please let us know. We've been fortunate. Danielle has provided training on sleeping for us and some other very big topics that families and parents are interested in. So we are happy, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Danielle.
All right, great. Thanks, Stacy. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I showed these ground rules while we were waiting, but I just want to go over them one more time. So we are using the Zoom webinar feature. In this feature, the participants do not have audio or video capabilities. Some of the questions in the chat are, I don't see you, or my video is not on. And if you've never used Zoom webinar, it's a little confusing when you start. So the only people that have video capabilities are myself and my other panelists. So participants, you do have access to our Q&A and our chat feature. Our third panelist we have on is Niquetta. She is going to be our moderator, and she's also a behavior specialist from Easterseals. She can field me questions. We're going to have 2 opportunities where I can answer questions live. We did have a couple submitted prior, so when we get to that point, we will go through the submitted questions as well. But Niquetta is going to manage the Q&A and the chat for us today. She also can provide you resources and links in there as we go. So keep an eye on those chat features. Also, your name will be shown in the Q&A if you decide to ask a question. And please don't utilize any identifying information about your child. This is a safe space, judgment-free zone. All right, so little introduction about myself. Here is my professional picture. My name is Danielle. I work for Easterseals of Southeastern Pennsylvania as the director of our Behavior Supports Department. My background is in education and teaching, specifically special education, autism, early intervention, and helping kiddos with challenging behavior. A big part of my job at Easterseals is positive behavior supports, trainings, and supports for families and staff. The other side of me is in this picture. This picture is taken about a couple weeks ago. I'm a mom of 2. I have a child who is 6. He's in kindergarten. And I have a little itty bitty. She is 9 months old. So I do use my education and experiences and behavior and education, but I also pull from my experiences as a parent as well when I'm giving you guys the information. I use them a lot as examples, so I just wanted to give you guys a little peek into what my littles look like. And that's my husband, too. All right, so here are some National Center resources. Niquetta can throw these in the chat for you as well. A lot of the information that I'm going to share with you today was taken from the Center on the Social and Emotional Foundations for Early Learning, or CEFL. They do have family training modules that I utilize. A lot of other resources that I will provide you is from the National Center for Pyramid Innovations, NCPMI. Nikita can put that link in the chat as well. They have a ton of resources, visual supports, especially as it relates to COVID-19 and being home with kiddos. I'm going to share one of their graphics at the end of our presentation. These are two really great resources if you do want more information on PBIS in general or any of the topics that we're going to talk about today. Okay, so here's our agenda. We're going to talk about building relationships using the 5-to-1 ratio. We're going to talk a little bit about the power of play, encouraging positive behavior, and establishing routines. So let's start at the beginning. What is PBIS? Okay, for those of you who are not familiar with PBIS, it stands for Positive Behavior, Intervention, and Supports. In general, it is a positive approach to behavioral intervention. Okay, we focus a lot on prevention. How can we utilize strategies and supports to prevent challenging behaviors from occurring? How can we create these nurturing and supportive environments for children so that we can teach them alternatives to engaging in challenging behavior? PBIS is implemented on a program-wide scale in all of our Easterseals classrooms in Southeastern Pennsylvania. And we also utilize the PBIS prevention strategies for all the kiddos we serve in the community as well. All right, so we're going to talk about relationships, okay? And there's a quote up there that says, every child needs one person who is crazy about him, okay? So I want you just for 1 second to think about a relationship that you have, or maybe you still have, that you would consider nurturing and supportive. For me, I always think about my grandma. My grandma and I had a very close relationship. She passed away almost 10 years ago now, but I remember even being in my 20s, seeing her, I would hop on her lap, right? And she would give me hugs and we would talk, and she wasn't judgmental. She gave me advice, right? She would tell me how it is, but she was very supportive and nurturing, right? And every kid needs one person, at least, who does that for them, right? So we're going to talk about how to build these really nurturing relationships with our kids. Now, for some of you might say, oh, well, I already have that, right? Your child, I'm born, when children are born, right? If you have a biological child, you would say, well, obviously, I love my child. I have this relationship, this great relationship with them, and that's awesome. A lot of parents do. But especially in times like these, it's really important to think about how the environment can affect your relationship. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today, because relationships are the foundation for building or utilizing other strategies for your children. So again, I want you to think about that person, right? And now we're going to think about how can we replicate that sort of relationship, that nurturing relationship, that loving relationship, that safe relationship, right, with our kids. And one way we can do that is utilizing the 5-to-1 ratio. Now, the 5-to-1 ratio is a ratio of positive to negative interactions. So what it says is we want to have at least 5 positive interactions for every 1 negative interaction. And where this ratio came from is actually marriage research. Dr. John Gottman did a study on married couples, and he tracked their interactions. He would code them either positive interactions or negative interactions. And with this data that he took from their interactions, he could predict with pretty remarkable accuracy if they would be together or divorced 5 years later. The rate that he could predict divorce with was 0.8 to 1. So in those instances, there was actually more negative interactions than positive interactions. But the 5-to-1 ratio was the ratio that he found was in really stable, happy couples. So we adopted this 5-to-1 ratio in PBIS to really try to balance these interactions that we have with our children. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about this, and I'm going to use a piggy bank analogy. That's why you see that piggy bank on the screen. Because sometimes when we talk about the 5-to-1 ratio, it can seem like it would be really challenging to use. And I'm going to give you an example of why it might seem challenging. So let's say my son is having a rough day, okay? And I have to redirect or correct him 10 times, right? So a negative interaction could just be a correction, right? So I'm already going to tell him, bud, you got to do your schoolwork in your room. We're going to keep your hands to yourself. Your feet on the floor. You're going to do your work. I have to redirect him 10 times. He keeps coming out of his room. Joey, go back to your room. Or I hear him jumping on your bed. Bud, feet on the floor, right? All of those corrections and redirections are negative in our count, okay? So if I have to do that 10 times, right, how many positives do I need, right? What's 10 times 5? That's 50, right? So if you do these calculations for children that have a lot of challenging behavior, it might seem impossible. But it's not. So I'm going to reframe this for you. Think about a piggy bank, okay? Think about children. Every child has a piggy bank. And think about us too, right? Well, we have these piggy banks. And we fill our banks, right? We give deposits by having positive interactions, okay? So every positive interaction, right, puts money in the bank. Right? This is kind of like the bucket fillers. If you guys are familiar, maybe some school-age PBIS lingo, they call it bucket fillers, right? So positive interactions fill our piggy banks. So let's think about us first, adults. Things that fill our piggy banks. I don't know, for me, sleep. A good night's sleep fills my piggy bank. An uninterrupted shower at this point fills my piggy bank. Okay? Paychecks, getting paid, actually fills our piggy banks. Having a good day with your child, right? If you're not arguing, you're not fighting, that's going to fill your bank, right? So all these things, maybe getting to do yoga, which I love and haven't been able to do that often. All these positive things fill my bank, right? But then I get withdrawals. So throughout the day, things that are challenging occur that take from my bank, right? This morning, my computer wouldn't work when I turned it on. That was a withdrawal, okay? Then the baby woke up from her nap early and was crying. That's a withdrawal, okay? So if we are taking money out of that bank and we're not filling it up, what happens? We can't take withdrawals out of an empty piggy bank, right? So adults end up getting burned out. If all you're doing is withdraw, and you're not filling your bank, you get burned out. The same happens to our kids, okay? If all we're doing is redirecting, correcting them, punishing them all day, and we're not focusing on filling their banks, they're going to get burnt out, and that might show differently in a child than it would for an adult, right? They might have tantrums, they might shut down, right? So we have to make sure to fill our kids' banks all day, every day, whenever we can, okay? It's a regular practice. When I train this to our Easterseals staff, I always say, it's something you just get in the habit of doing all day, every day, right? So, an example at home. Your child wakes up in the morning, oh, good morning, buddy. I'm so happy to see you. That fills their bank. Giving them a hug fills their bank, right? Rubbing his head as he's brushing his teeth fills his bank, okay? Just sitting with your child, spending time with them, that fills their banks. right? Giving them some positive feedback. Oh, I love how you got up and went right to the bathroom and washed your hands. Awesome job. Those are bank. Okay, so we need to get in the habit of just filling our kids' banks all day, every day, whenever we can. Okay, because guess what? It's inevitable that we are going to have to redirect and correct our children, right? So we know we're taking withdrawals, so we have to make it a habit of filling those banks too. Okay. So here are some examples or ways to give encouragement or fill our kiddos' banks, okay? Thank you for washing your hands, right? What a good problem solver. You were able to find your own toy. That's one thing my son does now. He's like, I can't find, Pokemon card or this. And I'm like, that's your responsibility, right? But praising them for those positive, appropriate behaviors. Oh, it's another one. It's so much fun playing with you. You're so good at taking turns. Thank you for being so kind. You shared with your sister. Or thank you for using your inside voice when your sister was asleep. Now, I promise I didn't even write that one, and I use it all the time. We're going to talk later about setting expectations and rules, and that's what we have in my house. When the baby is sleeping, we need to use a quiet voice. Okay, so these are some ways to give encouragement. Physical touch, the hugs and squeezes and pats on the back, those things count too, right? So just try to figure out what your child likes, what kind of feedback they like to get from you. My son, he's getting older, so sometimes he doesn't like all the over-the-top feedback. So sometimes a thumbs up, right? And for the itty bitties, right, it's just going to be holding them and rocking them and spending time with them, right? That's going to fill their little bitty baby banks, okay? Okay, so here are some positive parenting tips related to the 5-to-1 ratio. Try your best to fill and refill your kids' piggy banks, okay? Use positive comments and encouragement with your child. Have fun. Doing things with your child that they enjoy and maybe that you enjoy too, right, will fill their banks. Even if it's just going outside and throwing a ball, right? Find ways to have fun together. They will fill the kiddos' banks. And also, don't forget about your bank, okay? I'm giving you a lot of strategies and suggestions for your children. But guess what? If your bank is not full, it's going to be really hard to utilize these strategies, okay? So don't forget about your bank, okay? Even if it means hiding in the bathroom for a couple minutes, okay? Take the time to recharge, to fill your banks, okay? We're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about the power of play, following your child's lead. Now, play and following your children's lead is part of building relationships. But playing is so important for young children. And I forgot, being home, that if you don't have an education, early childhood, teaching or therapy background, it might not be natural to play with a young child. And I didn't realize this until I'm home with my husband, who does not have any of those backgrounds. And I'm like, go play with the baby. And he's just like sitting there and she's sitting there and then she's getting upset. I'm like, well, you have to play with her. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, so I had to show him, like, what does it mean to play with a young child? For my little one, she's, like I said, 9 months old, we had balloons in my house because it was my son's 6th birthday recently. So it's getting a balloon and hitting it. Oh, the balloon's going up. Oh, it's coming back down. And just like hitting the balloon. So she could watch it and then maybe she would try to hit it, right? So it's that back and forth engagement, right? it's really important for kids to play because that's how they learn, right? So following your child's lead is one way to kind of figure out what they like. What does play mean for them, right? So this little cutie on the screen has a lot of beads on. Maybe he likes beads, right? So maybe his mama can shake some beads with him, sing a song, right? But you have to notice what your kids like to be able to engage and play with them. So here are some tips for play. Look at those P's. The power of play. Powerful parenting practice tips. All right, so we talked about number 1, following their lead. Just watch, take a step back, wait, see what they're doing, and think about how you can join in with their play. Talk, talk, talk. Narrate their play. We don't want to be placing demands during this time, right? Because that would maybe be a withdrawal, right? We just want to narrate. So my son, he's really into like superheroes. So I might just come in and say, whoa, look at Hulk. He is so strong. Is he gonna, it looks like he is gonna, battle this guy or whatever, right? So, and I almost asked a question. We have to try to just narrate and talk about the play instead of asking questions and placing demands, okay? We want to encourage our child's creativity. It's okay if they're not playing with a toy in the way it was designed to. Now, we don't necessarily want to encourage repetitive play, but for younger kids, they're going to explore and they're going to be creative with their toys, and that's okay. Okay? We're going to watch for our kids' cues, right? We're going to see where they're going with their play. We're going to try to engage with them in a really easygoing manner. If they start to get upset, maybe you're going to back off, okay? We want to avoid the power struggle, okay? This is applicable to play, but it's also in general. I talk a lot about this in staff training. And I'm going to give you an example of what a power struggle is, okay? So a caregiver or a parent places a demand. Let's say maybe we say, pick up your toy. Kid says no. Excuse me. We repeat our commands. Pick up the toy. Kiddo says no, right? So then what happens? It kind of goes back and forth, and it might escalate. I said clean up your toys. Maybe you're yelling. Maybe you're getting upset. Maybe the kid starts to cry or throw things, right? It's this back and forth power struggle. We want to try to avoid that at all costs with our kids, okay? And how do you do that? How do you avoid power struggles? We're going to talk about teaching routines and using visual supports. That's going to be one way to avoid this power struggle. We're going to also talk about choices, right? Instead of saying, it's time to clean up, we might say, all right, we're going to clean up the toys. Do you want to use the red bucket or the blue bucket? And mommy's going to help, okay? Giving them choices and helping them with these tasks will help to avoid those power struggles, okay? We'll talk more about that later, but that's a really, really important part, especially of play, because play is supposed to be easy breezy, right? Not placing demands, just engaging and filling your kids' piggy banks. And tip 6, like I said before, have fun, okay? Make it fun. Sometimes you're not going to be totally into what your kid is doing. That's normal, okay? Just try your best, right? Try to have fun and, kind of get into your kid's world a little bit. Okay, I am going to take a Q&A break number 1. So, Niquetta, can you share either our question that was turned in before or any relevant questions that came in the Q&A?
Yes, we did have one question by email. He says, my 4-year-old son, Andrew, likes throwing things since he was little, and he still does. Outside, he likes picking up rocks and sticks, and he throws them in the drain. At home, he throws anything from tissue paper to blocks down the stairs, and I've tried talking to him to the point it's at threatening point, and it didn't work. Are there any solutions?
Good question. So throwing behaviors and what to do. So some kids do like to throw and dump, and depending on where they're at developmentally, some of that might just be their exploration. Okay, I would find appropriate ways to throw. So I've worked with kiddos that had that same sort of behavior, and we want to try to help them by creating opportunities to throw. Maybe you're gonna roll up a couple pieces of paper, or they can throw it in the trash waste basket. Maybe you're gonna get a little basketball net at home, and they're gonna throw balls into the little basketball net. Find ways for appropriate ways to throw. Also, when they start to throw toys maybe that are inappropriately, we want to try to limit our reactions. Sometimes our reactions, if they are in a direct response to a challenging behavior, might actually be reinforcing that behavior. We're going to talk a little bit about reinforcement, but essentially what that means is anything that is provided after a behavior that actually increases the likelihood of that behavior happening more often. So if a kiddo's throwing something, and maybe their intention is to get your attention, and you say, don't throw that. Did you give them your attention? Yeah, you did. So your correction might actually be reinforcing the throwing. So try to limit your responses, okay? Try to restrict your child from objects that if they start to throw, right? Let's say they're at the top of the stairs and they start to throw blocks, okay? Just move away the rest of the blocks, right? Think about your environment. Move away the rest of your blocks, okay? And give them something else to do. Okay, we're gonna walk down the stairs now, right? And then maybe give them an activity that includes throwing, okay? And maybe they like the sound of the blocks going down the stairs. So think about a way to recreate that, right? We talk a little bit about replacement behaviors, but how can you recreate what they're seeking? If they like that boom, boom, boom going down the stairs, maybe you can throw the blocks in a bucket and shake it up. Oh, boom, 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 right? So a couple of suggestions. Hope that helps. Any other questions, Nikita, or should we move on?
Yes, we have two more. What do you recommend for a child who will not be accountable and blames others for things the child has done?
So that happens. I have, like I said, a 6-year-old that does that often. He'll even blame the baby. I'm like, she can't even walk yet, right? So we want to set expectations and have consequences for our kids, right? They're kind of like those two pieces. Set the rule or expectations and then have a consequence. So an example of that is, my son has to complete all of his schoolwork while we're home if he wants to have his screen time in the evening. So if he doesn't complete his schoolwork and I have to redirect him, he gets a couple warnings and then he loses his screen time, right? So he can say or blame anyone else. He can say, well, Dad was on a call and he didn't help me and I couldn't find my pencil or the baby distracted me. He can give me any sort of excuse, but the consequence is holding firm, right? And I can say, and I like to use these sort of interactions with my kid as a way to label their feelings. I see that you're really upset, right? Because our kids have feelings like we do, and we can talk to them about, it's okay to feel mad. I see you're mad. It's okay that you're mad, bud, but we're still not getting that show tonight, right? Hold firm with your expectations and your consequences, but be mindful and considerate of their feelings, right? And then I like to provide an alternative. If I'm taking away something as a consequence, right? So he didn't get his show. But now what? Now he has no show. He's not getting that, but he still has to complete his schoolwork. So I'll give an alternative to work towards. So I might say, you know, you lost your show for tonight, but if you finish your schoolwork, Mom will read you an extra book before bed. Okay, so you still want to make sure you're balancing your rewards and consequences and using them to your advantage, right? So I would just, if your kid is shifting blame, just try to ignore that fact of the shifting blame and just express that you see their feelings. Oh, I see you must be feeling frustrated, right? Use it as an opportunity to do that, okay? Hope it helps. Last question, Nikita.
I'm looking for advice on potty training. My child is now 4 and has regressed since quarantine and now will not go to the potty. I have tried bribes and everything. She has no interest now.
Good question. I'm going to do a whole other webinar on potty training, and I will send Stacey the information to forward out to everyone because there's a lot involved with potty training. But I will say one thing. You're rewarding potty training, not bribing. There's a difference. So on the minds of rewards, when we have potty rewards, make sure whatever you pick, right, whether it's a treat, whether it's a tablet, whether it's a toy, okay, make sure that thing is only for potty training, right? When I was potty training my son, he wasn't allowed to have access to his tablet at that point. He was only 3. So I said, you know, if you go to potty, you know, you can have your tablet. And the tablet was only for potty training. And it did really help. So I would suggest finding something your child really likes, right? And making that their potty prize, okay? But make sure they can only have it for potty training. Other suggestions, I want to move on, but I think it's important to note, potty training should be fun. If your kid is fighting you, take a step back, okay? Every kid does it on their own time frame. And you can follow through with strategies and suggestions. But if you're pushing to the point where the bathroom and potty becomes aversive, it means you went too far. Okay, so start by identifying a reward just for the potty, and maybe you're going to reinforce them just for sitting to begin with, right? So they get their reward just for sitting on the potty. Once they can do that on their own for a couple tries, then maybe say, okay, I know you can sit. You did an awesome job. Now I want you to go pee-pees on the potty, and then you get your reward. Okay, so make it fun. Start small and find a potty reward. Okay, thank you guys. They are great questions. I'm going to move on, and we'll have another opportunity for questions before we end. Okay, so we're going to talk about encouraging positive behavior. And I will use the terminology, tell them what to do instead. So really focusing on positive language, okay? So we want to try to avoid a lot of the no's, stops, and don'ts. Now, I want to say, because it is hard sometimes to completely take these negative connotations out of your vocabulary, right? We do want kids to know what stop means, right? It's important that if they're doing something unsafe, that you say stop and they stop. So we want a kiddo to understand and know those commands. But if all you're saying all day is stop, 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 no, right? They lose value. Okay, so we want to try on a day-to-day basis to use more positive language and tell kiddos what to do instead. So there are some examples up here I want to show you. I'm just going to move this over here. So here's an example. Instead of saying no running, you can say, here's your walking feet, right? I always give the example at school. If we say no running, the kid might crawl, skip, or jump down the hallway, right? So be specific. What do you want them to do? Instead of stop yelling, you can say, use your inside voice or use a quiet voice. There's also some cool voice volume charts with like cat voice, mouse voice, and lion voice. These are my son all the time. I say, use your cat voice, right? And I can send that as a resource to you guys afterwards as well. But that's a nice way to tell a kiddo exactly what you need from them in the moment, not just to stop doing that, right? Same with no hitting, right? Sometimes we don't say anything at all, or maybe we just direct them, keep your hands down, keep your hands to yourself, and no crying. Sometimes kiddos just need to be consoled a little bit, right? Maybe that's going to help to de-escalate them or calm them. If they have some vocal language, you can say, tell me, use your words. If they don't, they're so young, say, show me, show mama, show dada, show auntie or grandma what you want, okay? So try to give them specifics instead of focusing on what they should stop doing, okay? Another good point is if we're focusing on what we want them to stop doing, it might be reinforcing, we talked about that negative behavior, and we want to try our best not to do that, okay? We're going to talk a little bit now about rules and expectations and how to make them clear. The first thing we just talked about, tell your child what to do instead of what not to do. Clearly and simply state what you expect your child to do. And we want to have age-appropriate language and expectations. So for my son, my rules are simple. He's 6, so they might be, what we've talked about is don't or stay quiet when the baby's sleeping, right? Follow directions and be kind. Right? They're simple, they're basic, but they're age appropriate for him. For even littler kiddos, if you're talking 0 to 3, 3 to 5, right? Think about what's appropriate. Maybe it's just be kind, listening ears, quiet mouth, okay? So think about what is age appropriate for your kiddos, okay? And also think about, we're talking about what's reasonable. Where are they at? Expecting too much or expecting too little can lead to frustration, okay? Be realistic. Know your child's abilities and create rules and expectations that meet them where they're at, okay? Here are some other examples for home rules or expectations. Clean up after yourself. Use an inside voice, ask before you use something that isn't yours, or use your words to solve problems, okay? This might be for an older kiddo, 5 or 6, right? But it really depends on, again, your child's age and where they're at developmentally. You can also use pictures to create rules for home, okay? So here are some examples of how to help your kiddo to be successful and teach them those rules and expectations. So, number 1, show and tell. The tell, I think we got, most of us, right? We're telling our kids what to do all the time, right? So, you want to tell them, okay? So, an example would be, be quiet when the baby is sleeping. So, I'll tell my son, all right, baby's sleeping. Remember, we need to be quiet. And I'm going to show him. I might tiptoe past the baby's room and whisper and do a little gesture, okay? Show and tell, okay? And then practice, all right? Now I can say, now you show me, right? So I'm going to talk about what I want him to do. I'm going to show him what I want him to do. And then I'm going to ask him to practice, okay? And then I'm going to reinforce. Oh, buddy, you are so good at staying quiet while your sissy is sleeping, okay? So those 3 steps to teach our kiddos, okay, the rules and expectations. Show and tell, practice makes perfect, and you got it, okay? We can also use pictures, right? That show might be a picture, and it doesn't have to be fancy, okay? It can just be from your camera, okay? So maybe your rule for this buddy on the screen might be throw your trash away after you wash your hands, or clean up after lunchtime, if that's a rule or expectation you have in your house, okay? So the show could be a picture, right? Maybe it's a picture of them doing it successfully, a sibling, maybe it's even you, okay? And just show them. Remember, we're going to clean up when you're all done your lunch, okay? So you can print the pictures and post them. You can just show it on your phone, but you're going to model, practice, and praise when they display those appropriate behaviors, when they follow your rules and expectations. I'm going to give you some links for some visual supports. Nikita can throw them in the chat. We're going to talk a little bit about schedules and routines, and there's a ton of visuals you can use, but don't stress yourself out over the visual supports. A lot you can just do with your phone. Okay, you can take a picture and use it very simply and use that as a visual. Okay, so why do this? Okay, because it might seem like a lot of work. So kids are less likely to engage in problem behavior when they know what to do, how to do it, and what is expected. Okay, we're doing all of this. Remember, PBIS is focused on prevention. Okay, we're going to do all of these things. We're going to focus on our 5-to-1 ratio. We are going to play with our kiddos, engage with them, and we're going to set rules and expectations to hopefully decrease the likelihood of them engaging in challenging behavior. Okay? Positive reinforcement. Catch your kiddo being good. Okay, this is super important. It goes back to the 5-to-1 ratio. Positive reinforcement and praise count to fill your kiddo's piggy banks, okay? So we want to give specific positive attention to your child when they're engaging in that appropriate behavior. So for this little girl here, you might say, wow, you're being so careful keeping those pieces on the table. Great work, okay? Catch them being good. It is hard, trust me, I know. Being home, trying to balance like life responsibilities and your child. I get it, trust me, 100%. So if you see them doing something that is positive and appropriate, just shout it out, right? Oh, I love how you are sitting so nicely on the couch with your sister. And that's it, right? Some kids even, if you have a child that's very active, my son is super active, and I feel like all day I'm saying, let's have a calm body. Let's get in control of your body, right? So if I see him calm, I might say, oh, I love how you have a nice calm body right now, okay? So catch them being good, give them some positive praise, positive reinforcement. And it's just important to note here too, some kids don't get reinforced by praise, right? Or even any sort of social reinforcement. For those kids, you want to make sure that you do know what is reinforcing to them so that you can provide reinforcement following appropriate behaviors, okay? All right, so we're going to talk here, lastly, about establishing a routine and how we can use visuals to do that. And I know it's challenging to keep a consistent routine, working from home or even just being at home and the kids being there. There are so many different variables that's affecting our lives right now. I get that. So try your best and don't stress about this. But try to have a general routine for your day. So an example here is like a morning routine. So maybe you're going to get up, you want them to use the toilet, you want to have breakfast, take some medicine, brush teeth, wash face, brush hair, get dressed. If your child has a hard time with their morning routine, then maybe this is something you want to try to help them to get in the habit of doing that. I put up here timers are a really great tool too to transition from one step to the next, okay? Part of our morning routine with my son, he does get like screen time in the morning. So, I would have that built on his schedule. But some days he wants playtime instead. So screen time is kind of easier as far as the transition goes because the show is done, your screen time's over, now it's time to go to the bathroom, brush teeth, wash face, etc. If he's playing, there's no definitive end to that. So I just use the kitchen timer and I set it for 10 minutes. right? And I say when timer goes off, it's time to get dressed and ready for the day. Okay, so timers can be really, really helpful tools. It's also important to note that once your child has an established routine, then you can fade out these pictures, okay? Because they will understand the rhyme and rhythm of your day. Here's another example for brushing teeth, okay? You can teach activities of daily living, such as brushing teeth, even potty training, the steps of that with a visual schedule. We'll throw those links up there for you if we haven't already, but there are some good resources for online tools on creating these schedules if you want them to look like this. But remember what I said, you can use your camera, okay, to take pictures to teach your routine. And you can just swipe through an order, right, of the routine. There are some apps that will do this for you too. I just always caution. I caution families to not spend money on things you don't have to, because unfortunately, people market towards parents that have a need. I always say this when I talk about potty training or sleeping, right? Don't get too caught up in spending a lot of money on things, right? So if you can, use your phone, swipe, that'll help. And I'll give you links to some free resources as well for creating visual schedules. But they help. Again, it's teaching your child an expectation. Okay. Again, the goal is to try to prevent some challenging behavior that might arise. Choices. I said we would get to this earlier. Offering a choice within the routine, within the expectation, can really, really make a difference. Okay. You can provide a choice. It decreases the perceived demand, right? So what does that mean? It means there's a big difference between saying, all right, here's your clothes, it's time to get dressed, versus, do you want to wear your Batman shirt or your Spider-Man shirt today? Okay, and I show the choices. If you provide a choice, a child is more likely to comply than if you just blanket give a demand. Okay, so can you offer a choice within the routine? So I gave you one for dressing, but for bathing, for dinner, can be a time where we struggle as well, right? So maybe you're gonna let them pick where they sit for dinner. Okay, my son doesn't like his food touching, right? So it's not really a choice, but I know it's his preference. So guess what? I'm not gonna make his food touch, right? Or maybe I'm gonna give him a choice of a vegetable before I start cooking. And I do this frequently because he is a little bit of a picky eater. I'll say, do you want carrots or green beans for dinner tonight? And let him pick. It doesn't always, sometimes he'll say, none. But sometimes he will pick one, right? And then he's more likely to eat it if he's involved in the decision-making process. Okay, so within all of these routines, going to bed, cleaning up, snack time, reading a story, if you can provide a choice, do so. It will help, okay? And make sure the choices are limited and reasonable. So I always say to my son, this is not a diner, okay? I don't have like a menu of everything available, but if I have French fries, mashed potatoes, and tater tots, then I'll give them a choice. If I don't, if it's just French fries or tater tots what I have in my freezer, then that's the option, right? You pick. You pick what's available and what's reasonable, okay? First end statements are so helpful. They go right along with choices. These are probably the top two prevention strategies when we're talking about PBIS and what to use to kind of head off some challenging behavior. First ends, okay? You want to talk about what you want your child to do and what they will get for doing what you asked, okay? So first, put on your shoes, and then you can go outside, okay? First, pick up your toys, then you can have a snack. First, get dressed, then you can play outside, okay? Some of these are naturally occurring reinforcers. Some of them you're gonna have to schedule that way. Right? Maybe you want snack time to be right after playtime, so it'll help motivate them to clean up their toys. You can use visual supports for these as well. Here are some examples of first end boards. Nikita will also put the links in the chat. But again, you don't have to use a fancy first end. You can use the language and show a picture, right? First, clean up, shoop, swipe, then snack and show them the snack. You could even give a choice of snack. So you're combining the two, right? So first clean up, then you can have Cheez-Its or pretzels, okay? So let them pick the then too. And the whole point of this is it's motivating them to get through some of those lesser preferred activities, okay? So I say all this, but then I'm like, but wait, we're parenting during a pandemic. Yes, I am very much aware of that. So do your best, okay? All you can do is put your best effort. Now, I know that it's stressful. So like I said before, fill your bank, take care of yourself. You're feeling stressed, you're feeling overwhelmed, take a break. Even if it's just, like I said, lock yourself in the bathroom for 1 minute and take some deep breaths, or walk outside and get a breath of fresh air if you're able to do that, okay? I know that everyone's kind of struggling a little bit, okay? And hopefully things will be getting back to normal somewhat soon, or new normal anyway. But give yourself a break, give yourself some grace, okay? We understand, everyone understands, I'm in this with you, that this is like not normal times right now, okay? So don't stress, okay? Here is one of those infographics I wanted to share with you guys from NCPMI, the National Pyramid Model Innovations. This is a tool, infographic for parents, for families and caregivers. Stay calm, connect, reflect. If you find yourself getting upset with your child, which happens, right? Because we're human, right? So take a couple deep breaths. We're going to try to stay calm. You can do a positive affirmation like, I have patience, I can be calm, something like that. Then you want to connect. Talked about before, labeling your child's feelings, right? I see you're angry. I see you're upset. I love you, right? Show them, give them some words of affirmation. And then look for opportunities to celebrate your kids' behavior. Catch them being good, okay? Stay calm, label their feelings, try to focus on the positive, catch them being good. And then once you're calm, once they're calm, you're going to reflect a little bit, okay? And think about it. If you have a significant other or another adult in the household, talk to them about it, okay? If this happens again, what are we going to do, okay? And think about, what was their behavior trying to communicate to you? Or what can you do differently next time as far as a prevention strategy? Using a timer or a visual, providing a choice, okay? Think about, how they might have been feeling in that situation. And then remember something awesome about your kid, right? And then count to 10 again, right? So this is a nice visual for us to try to stay calm when our kids might push our buttons a little bit. Okay, we got a couple more minutes left. So any final questions in the Q&A?
Yes. She says, my 6-year-old son gets angry and mad very easily and yells and screams in many cases for most things that doesn't go his way. Are there any good strategies to make him more flexible and calm? And there's one more question.
That's a good question. So your child's getting angry. I would focus on trying to teach a coping skill. So, and what does that mean? Different coping skills work. Some work for some kids and don't work for others. But there are some common coping strategies like taking a deep breath. There are so many resources that you can use for teaching kids to take a deep breath. You can use a pinwheel. Okay, they can blow the pinwheel. You can do belly breathing in and out, where they put their hands on their belly and they can feel themselves breathing in and out. There's a great Elmo belly breathing video. I don't know if you can pull that up and put it in the chat. But there's a lot of ways to teach deep breathing. So that's one skill you could teach. If they can count, you can do a count to 5. You can do a cozy area in your house. Okay. We don't really do timeouts. We don't, at my house, in an Easterseals, we have a policy. We don't utilize them, but we do have cozy or calm down areas. If you have a space in your house that is safe for your child with bean bags and pillows, they can kind of go crash out when they're upset. and label their feelings. I see you're angry. I see you're upset. Why don't you go in the calm down area for a few minutes, and then we can try this again. Okay? So acknowledge their feelings, label their feelings, teach a coping skill. Okay? Remember, we have to teach the skill before we can expect them to engage in it. So maybe it's deep breathing. Maybe it's a calm down area. Maybe it's counting. Maybe it's squeezing themselves or closing their eyes. Maybe it's, squeezing a pillow. Okay, find a coping skill that works for your child. Teach it, and then help him to utilize that when he gets upset. All right, last question, Nikita.
My son has almost no tolerance on mistakes and failures. For example, when he gets mad about a mistake on his homework, which he realized, like incorrect handwriting, most likely he would stop immediately, refuse to continue, and then walk away. How do we make him handle his mistakes and failures more appropriately?
That's a hard one. Okay, so I would try to set an expectation beforehand, especially when you know something is hard. Handwriting is really hard for my son too. So before we start a writing assignment, I give him a visual of the expectations, right? So I say, now remember, you're going to use a capital letter to start, you're going to use 2 finger spaces and a punctuation at the end, right? I try to give him as many supports as I can on the front end, okay? So I would suggest to do that. You can also throw in, if you make a mistake, it's okay. I can help, right? It's okay if we help our kids. We want them to correct and learn how to correct their own mistakes. But when we're talking about really young kids, we can help, provide a model. If they're like, oh, their letter B is backwards, okay, I'm going to show you what the D looks like, and then you can do it, right? So try to set expectations on the front end. Give them an out. What do they need to do if they need help? Tell them, if this is too hard for you, I can help, right? And express to them, again, label their feelings. I see this is really hard for you. I appreciate you trying your best, right? And if you can, if a child gets very escalated, especially our Easterseals kiddos in classrooms, if they get really highly escalated, maybe we modify the task. Okay, if it is too hard, remember I said you find the sweet spot, right? So if it's too hard or too easy, you might see frustration. If a task is really too hard and they're making a lot of mistakes, maybe we need to modify our expectation. You can always come back to the rest later, or maybe if it's a school-age child, explain to their teacher, we modified this because it was really hard for him. Okay? All right, I hope that helps you guys. I wanted to just share another sentiment, one thing at a time, okay? I gave a lot of information, a lot of resources, but just pick one thing to work on. It's really hard. We try to manage a lot of things at once, and sometimes you won't know what's working and what's not if you try too many things at one time. So pick one thing at a time. You guys got this. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, but using these positive strategies can really help regardless of if your kiddo is in school, if they're at home, for the long term. So here are some resources. Again, if Nikita didn't put these already in the chat box, you can throw them in. We do have an Easterseals blog that our therapists, myself, our teachers post on. There's a ton of resources that are free to the public. Here is that NCPMI direct link to the COVID-19 resources. Again, a lot of great visuals. First, then borns, visual schedules. These are all free resources for you guys if you want to explore the use of those with your kiddos. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing. And that's all I got. Stacy, do you want to close us?
Yes, I wanted to thank everyone for attending today. If you are interested in having your name added to a list of any of the resources or follow-up information that Danielle and her team Nikita have shared today, I've just requested you can send an email to me at the county. So my email address is sbarno@chesco.org. I am the Chester County LICC co-chair as well as the county's infant toddler early intervention coordinator. I help to oversee the infant toddler program administratively. So if you, again, would like further information, please reach out. And I just wanted to thank Niquetta and Danielle for your time. And everyone, have a good evening.
Thank you, guys. And this has been recorded. I think Niquetta put a link into another webinar I did with the same content, but I will send Stacey this PowerPoint as well as the recording that you guys can access as well. So thank you, everyone. Enjoy your day. Bye.